Hey everybody, it's Rob here. I've never really got to play much of PoE 1 and probably many of you watching haven't either. But after playing PoE 2 for a few hours already and now seeing the absolute nuke of an announcement yesterday from GG, I'm really excited to jump into PoE come December 6th. The biggest reason for me by far is probably the crazy endgame that they have. Look at this.
This is the Atlas, and it serves as the core of the endgame for Path of Exile 2. It's infinite and expands in all directions.
It's just an infinite endgame system, and the way I understand it, again with my limited Path of Exile knowledge so far, is that all of these are different maps and different modifiers and have different mechanics that you can engage with. Also stacking up like some of the league mechanics that we've already seen and that has been fan favorites from Path of Exile 1. However, even as a newer player, the game is definitely going to be pretty complex, but it's not going to get that crazy hard to get into than PoE 1. There is going to be a good curve here, even for beginning players learning the game. And this focus on the end game is just absolutely crazy and fresh and new to me, because coming from Diablo 4, what Diablo 4 does really well is cater to like a beginning player, like getting players into the game. But where Diablo 4 is definitely or has a lot of critique at the game is the full end game, because after a certain amount of time there is not that much to do in Diablo 4 anymore. Like you have these like Helltide, you have these Whisperers, you have these Nightmare Dungeons, but you're basically already doing all of these while you level and having like a real difficult end game with the difficult bosses, pinnacle bosses, uber bosses in Path of Exile has me really excited as a challenge and also of just like, you know, ways and reasons to improve your character even further. So I'm very much looking forward to that. We'll have a look at some of the bosses as well. The next thing that has me really excited is the classes, with a sheer endless combination possibilities of these different classes with their different ascendancies. Because essentially there is going to be 12 classes total, and they're all going to have 3 different specializations, ascendancies to basically further spec your class into it. So a total of 36 different character builds. And the way that it works with the different skill gems and ascendancies that you have here is that you can basically have any skill on any class and you can combine them all. So you can, if you want, you can probably play like a warrior with a bow or with some bow specs if you really like. And these ascendancies, they basically allow you to fully like
She can also transform into a literal demon.
Look at this. This is, for example, the witch that is just casually transforming into a succubus.
She can also transform into a literal demon. While in demon form, she takes an increasing amount of damage, but her cast speed and damage increase rapidly as well.
Man, that looks so sick. So you can like become this like, you know, succubus character and become like a big offensive character and just have a ton of fun on all these different builds. And it's gonna be amazing to see all these classes and the, again, sheer endless possibilities, I think, that you can come up with. And then linking or seeing like all these different skills and skill gems that have already been here on some of the fan sites. There is basically unlimited amounts. They have hundreds and hundreds of different skills and support gems that all can interact with each other to basically make fully unique and obviously potentially broken build. This is still an early access version of the game, and the developers even said it, like we can basically expect things to be you know, a little bit on the crazy side, and they will adjust very swiftly accordingly. But this is going to be a ton of fun to get into and to see what the, you know, collective like swarm intelligence of the community is going to come up with using all these different combination possibilities. Another great system that I'm excited for is the itemization. Finally, we have every item in the game being useful. You can have white items, magic items, rare yellow items, and legendary / unique items. and they all have their use case because there is essentially crafting, and you can even take, much like in Diablo 2, you can take a base white item and you can upgrade it into a magic item, and you can upgrade that magic item into a rare item, basically making it insanely good with like all these different currencies that you have in the game to basically craft them. And this is something that you're going to engage with right from the beginning with leveling. You also have a cool socket system to put runes, jewels into your items, and I think it's just amazing to see that finally we have every item in the game essentially being useful here. If you can craft it, you can just add a new modifiers, you can modify the item in a way, making it even crazier and like adding more affixes to it. So itemization is finally in a place where I would like it to be, with every item on the ground potentially being useful, even if it's something basic as a magic item. The next crazy thing here is the skill tree and the weapon specialization. Much like in Diablo 2, you actually have the option to have an alternative weapon, like a weapon switch. You just press a hotkey and your character switches weapon. And to take it a step further from Diablo 2, what GGG has done here in Path of Exile 2 is basically add a customizable option for your skill tree as well. Basically having two different sets of weapons here that you can allocate points for in your skill tree. So you can have a staff that is focused on doing fire damage, and then you have, I don't know, a sword or whatever on the second swap here that is basically focused on doing lightning damage, and you can assign which skill points you want to be active with which weapon. So you can see as he swaps, another part of the skill tree right now, fire is active, and as he swaps his weapons, then another one of those skill trees becomes active and the fire one becomes inactive. So you can essentially use fire skills with one weapon, and then you can use, for example, lightning skills with the other weapon, allowing for even more character customization and just different ways to make a difference and theory craft with your character, plan your skills, and just have a ton of fun in this endless possibility game in a way. The next thing here that they showed off is hard and meaningful boss content. And those bosses are not going to be known. They're all going to be a surprise. So very much looking forward to see the first people like beating down these uber ultra bosses, whatever they will be called in the game. But essentially being a big challenge. And this is something that has been a negative point for me from Diablo 4, pretty much right from like season 1 or season 2, where you had this awesome Lilith boss fight in Diablo 4, and it used to mean something, you know, to be able to kill the Uber Lilith boss fight in Diablo 4. But after like more and more complaints out of some parts of the community, especially from a very, you know, casual player base that basically couldn't beat this like pinnacle Uber Lilith boss, they have nerfed the Lilith boss fight in Diablo many times. I think every season since launch, they have basically nerfed Uber Lilith up to the point where it's become a full joke, basically, to do those bosses. And Lilith basically just dies in one shot when you just look at her. They removed some of her mechanics, they reduced her HP, there's a massive power creep, you know, for the basic average build, and pretty much every build in Diablo 4 in the endgame can just walk up to the uber pinnacle boss, the Lilith, and just one-shot her. And that really gets boring. It takes away from the excitement, from the, you know, the way is the goal in ARPGs. Like if a boss just dies in one shot, it's not memorable. You never will remember the Uber Lilith fight again as a newer player, because you just go up there on your, I don't know, a Hoda Barb, and you do one Hoda and Lilith is dead. So that's not really a meaningful fight anymore. So I would kind of wish that we also would get like more challenging bosses of the, you know, OG Lilith release on launch. Because if you remember back in the days, Lilith was actually a tough and a cool fight. And I really enjoyed that. I would have kind of wished for the Vessel of Hatred to also have like a Mephisto boss fight that was like, you know, up to the challenge, just like Uber Lilith was when she came out. But yeah, basically like the dumping down of the bosses in Diablo 4, essentially where they all just one-shot, is not great. So I really like to see a breath of fresh wind here in Path of Exile, having actually challenging boss fights that are gonna, like, you know, use and get the player to push his or her limits. So I'm really looking forward to that and fighting these hard bosses. The last thing I want to say here, guys, that I have basically streamed Path of Exile for the first time yesterday. And I really want to say a huge thank you to the entire Path of Exile community that came by the stream. I saw that people were super helpful, especially to newer players. And I think it's going to be a great thing. Like in ARPGs, like the community is sticking together. We don't really have this like PvP toxic mindset that happens in some of the other communities. Like if I'm looking at Dota or Counter-Strike, like there is so much drama and trash talk in these PvP games. And here it more feels like, you know, the community is playing together to like have fun, beating demons, beating hard enemies together in the game. And that is really cool. Sharing is caring. I really love like people like sharing, you know, their knowledge of the game. Like people have, you know, stacked up their PhDs. They have like these tens of thousands of hours in Path of Exile 1, and a lot of them are super open and helpful for newer players into the Path of Exile franchise, like me and like I think many of my viewers here as well. So I'm really excited to jump into the game and take you on the journey of learning this game together and just having great fun here as part of the community. I'm really looking forward for December 6th, and huge props again to GGG for making an awesome, in my opinion, masterpiece like this. We'll see how it's all gonna turn out come December 6th, but I'm sure excited. That doesn't mean I'm gonna quit Diablo 4. I'm still gonna play Season 7 and all those games, and I think we don't have to have this fight where it's always like this game is better, that game is better. You know, they all like cater to slightly different target groups and audience. There sure is an overlap, but you know, for us, the player, once more ARPGs are very good and competing with each other, that basically always nets in a positive for us, the player, the consumer, the gamer, because that means that the competition basically thrives both companies or multiple companies even to do better, make better games, and don't get away with things they usually get away with, and just make awesome video games. I'm excited. It's sure a great time to be an ARPG enjoyer. Let's go. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.